All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Scott, for that introduction, and thank you, Josue, for being here with us today. We're super excited to have you. I've had the privilege of knowing you for quite a while now, but for anyone who isn't familiar with you or the work that you do with First Tech Fund, can you just talk us through your journey to co-founding the organization?
Of course, yeah. Thank you for having me here. It's such an honor and privilege to be here with all of you today. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Los Angeles, but immigrated to the US at the age of 5 with my mom. And for me, growing up in a single-parent household under the poverty line, I saw a lot of the inequities that exist in the education system. So, my mom had to use another person's address to get me into a better zip code, into a better school. And so a lot of the experiences that I had academically and also in the corporate world really showed me that there's lots of lack of access that affect a lot of students who grew up in poverty. And so for me, I didn't know what an internship was. I didn't know about a lot of the different careers that exist in today's digital world. And so I felt like I was really behind when trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. And there weren't always people who looked like me in those rooms. There weren't always people from my community in those rooms. And so, the first 5 years of my career, I worked in the corporate space because, as I tell lots of people, my mom doesn't have any retirement funds, any retirement plan. You're looking at the retirement plan. I'm the human life 401k. And so for me, it was important to really make an emphasis on working in the corporate world, and in doing so, saw that there were so many careers, right? I think coming from that background, it was like doctor, lawyer, engineer. There's nothing else that exists, right? My mom was like, those are the careers. But doing internships and working corporate, just realized like I can work in fraud, I can work in payments, I can work in social, I can work in digital strategy, right? And knowing that lots of folks in my community did not have access to that insight was something that kind of inspired me to want to create something to build what I wish I had as a youth.
And a lot of that culminated when we saw the effects of the pandemic start to take place, right? And the way that it negatively impacted communities of color, communities with lack of resources and access to education and internet in particular. So it sounds like your background and your personal experiences kind of fed into the mission for First Tech Fund, right, and made it really clear what needed to be done.
Right.
How has that played out in reality, though, as you've taken First Tech Fund from ideation to implementation? What does that look like, and what were some of the learnings that you picked up on along the way?
Yeah, I think as you saw above, we've had a lot of students in the program, and the outcomes have been really spectacular. So, some students come into the program really needing that tech access. I had a mentee who grew up in NYCHA public housing, was taking college classes, but was doing all of it in the pandemic on her phone. Right? So for her, the tech access was really, really important. And once she figured out that, okay, now I have this tool, and now I know the scholarships that exist through our organization, we were able to really help her prepare for those opportunities, right? Her parents had never heard of a personal statement. My parents hadn't ever either. And so after working with us, she was able to go off and right now I'm at Columbia, but so is she. And so it's been really special to just see her on campus walking around and knowing that we played a part in that. I think from the beginning, obviously funding was an issue. We started the organization in May of 2020. So if you remember back, that was like middle of the pandemic. And I think we just realized that we had to be really creative in how we found technology. We had to be creative in how we partnered with organizations to get broadband out into the community. And I think more and more we're seeing that a lot of the partnerships actually we have with some of our corporate partners like Vimeo, like Monday.com, have really actually driven a lot of outcomes for our students. I can talk about that in a little bit, but I think as we grow, we're thinking about how can we create systems that provide opportunity, that provide pathways for students in a number of sectors, right? I think there's a big focus right now on coding, which makes sense, right? It's a great career path and a way for students to break into tech, but there's so many other ways to break in, right? We're talking about the future of digital today. There's so many roles that don't exist now that will exist in the future. There's so many roles on your respective teams, and you can invest in that talent today so that you're getting digital natives who are from the communities you're looking to target, who are on your team and can really provide you those trends and insights of what youth are looking at today.
That's awesome. You touched on making an impact, and we've been talking a lot today about how each of our speakers have been making impacts in their own day-to-day lives. So I'm going to pose that question to you. How have you been making an impact in your day-to-day life outside of First Tech Fund, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I try to make sure that in addition to my work, I'm out in the community mentoring folks. So I would say one of the best T-ball coaches in Harlem. That's one of my passion projects is to coach T-ball. I'm also on the board of trustees at a school in Bed-Stuy, and really have been trying to grow my leadership and grow what First Tech Fund is doing. So I'm currently one of the 12 Obama scholars at Columbia University, selected from a global pool of applicants. There's 12 of us from all over the world, and through that have really been trying to understand how to take what we're doing in New York and do it in Philadelphia, and do it in Baltimore, and do it in Detroit, and do it in LA, where I'm from. So I think for us, we're really thinking about how we can grow the outcomes, the impact, the partnerships that we've had in New York, and really bring that to other cities and even other countries. I know that I just had a conversation with Jay over coffee about Indonesia, right? And so potentially thinking about other ways that we can impact global communities.
Speaking of global communities, you have a global community of execs from the top retailers and merchants here right in front of you today. What do you want them to know about the kids that you work with?
I mean, we have some absolute superstars in our midst, students that are designing websites, designing clothing, designing all types of things that could be a huge asset to your company, to your brand. So I think, beyond doing CSR as something that your company values and beyond wanting to connect to the community, I think that as we think about, I heard a gentleman from Saks talk about how trends are constantly changing, and platforms are constantly innovating, right? With TikTok being the huge one, but even Roblox, the metaverse, and my personal favorite, if you haven't heard of it, it's called Be Real. It's the new social media app that the youth are on, that I try to stay up to date on. But these things are important, right? If you are investing in youth now, they will help you understand tomorrow's trends. And I think if you partner with an organization like First Tech Fund, you can also co-create the future, right? We can launch custom curriculum that teaches them cybersecurity. Or if you're experiencing friendly fraud, you can teach them about that in high school so that they're able to be up to date on what's happening and can be more prepared for those pathways in the future.
Awesome. Okay, and I know you're going to be sticking around after this, but for anyone who doesn't get a chance to talk to you while you're here today, or just has other questions that they want to explore down the line, where can they go to learn more about First Tech Fund?
Yeah, so we're not on Be Real yet because they don't have corporate accounts just yet. They're still pretty new. But I would say if you are interested, our website is firsttechfund.com. We're also on Instagram. We're also on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We have not developed that TikTok strategy, so if there's any TikTok experts in here that would love to partner with us on a TikTok strategy or would like to co-create some content, we're all for it. And I think that if you have interest in partnering or co-creating something, I think, like I said, it can go beyond CSR. One of the recent partnerships we did was with A Book Apart. And so they did kind of a BOGO deal where they offered their consumers a discount on a book, but if they bought a book, they obviously would donate one to First Tech Fund. And so that's how we think about creating creative partnerships that kind of go outside the box, but still really deliver value for the brand, really deliver value for our students, right? Each student got a book about public speaking. Each student got a book about design. And so we're always thinking about creative ways to engage with brands, whether that's engaging a brand to recruit for their retail stores, or engaging a brand if they want to help us prepare our students. As sometimes students don't have the formal clothes to show up to an interview. We're always thinking about ways that we can be creative to really support our community, but make sure to deliver that value to the bottom line for brands, both in the short term but also in the long term.
That's right. You also have a mentorship program.
Yes.
Can you talk to everyone in the audience here briefly about what that looks like and how they can get involved?
Of course, yeah. So I think for us, the pillars of First Tech Fund obviously are tech access, their exposure to career pathways, so not just in tech, but finance, healthcare, government, social impact. And then we find mentorship to be really key, right? If you can talk to somebody who's been through the challenges, who understands the potential pitfalls, who understands how to get ahead, it really helps you to be prepared for that next opportunity. And so for us, we always think about how we can inspire youth to realize that these opportunities are available to them. They're something that people from their communities have done before. So we have a mentorship program where we pair students in kind of a pod structure. So you usually get 1 to 3 students per pod. And then the pods are industry specific, but also vertical specific. So occasionally we have students who are deeply interested in health tech or agriculture tech or design, retail, anything that they have interest in. We go out and go to brands and say, hey, we have these students who are highly motivated, who potentially can be interns down the road, who could potentially be your entry-level talent that you're looking at. And I think as the digital world evolves, right, there's going to be a bigger war for talent. And I think the brands that invest in talent early are going to be the brands that end up winning in the space. And so for us, going to brands, making sure that we can find folks on their teams to mentor, making sure we can find folks on their teams to be part of our advisory boards, our board of directors. I think we're looking for any ways that we can engage the corporate world to give back in more than just philanthropy, but in creating the future with our organization and also with our youth.
All right. Well, you all heard it here first. If First Tech Fund sounds like an organization you'd like to learn more about, feel free to talk to Josue while he's here or look up his website, firsttechfund.com. Thank you again for being here with us today, and it's been great getting to chat with you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you to the full Forward team. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to see all of you at the happy hour after. I'll be there if you have any questions, but come by. It's been a wonderful day, and I think the happy hour will be a great way to continue to connect with each other. So thank you for having me.
All right.